Hi, everybody. Jim Ostrowski for the Liberty Moving Podcast, the only walking podcast in the world, or if there are others, the only good walking podcast, because all the other ones suck. So, well, all I can say is, folks, I wanted out, but they pulled me back in. This anti-fluoride campaign is beginning to explode. Naomi Wolf has picked it up. Kennedy's picked it up. When I say, I mean what we're doing in Buffalo. They've already been on it themselves. Just got off listening to Bellavia on WBEN. Good guy. Known him for years. Totally with us on fluoride. So it's not even what I'm going to talk about today. But tomorrow we're having another rally. First rally, we had 3 people. Next one, we had 6. Can we get 12 people there, please? Jeez. They're poisoning our water supply. What is going to get anybody motivated? Oh, I have to work. Okay. How many people are working at 3 o'clock tomorrow? I don't know. How many people are not working at 3 o'clock tomorrow in Erie County? 300,000? We can't get like 50 people down there? We're going to be serving papers on state and federal officials and the county health commissioner because we kind of forgot about her. So, but actually the topic for today, another health-related issue, the government's response to the Hurricane Helene in a bunch of states. Looks like North Carolina's hardest hit, South Carolina's second. Several other states, including Tennessee. I have very strong feelings about this because I've just been through that area. I love that area. Hint, hint. And we were just there. We went up through the mountains of North Carolina, which I guess are now impassable. We went through Johnson City, Tennessee, which was spared most of the storm, but the county south of Johnson City was hit hard. Can't remember the name. Begins with an O, I think. So we're going to talk about that. I was up in the middle of the night wondering if I should go to North Carolina and help. I mean, I just can't do it. I can't do it. It's a 700-mile drive. I'm busy. I have no backup, and I've got commitments, and I've got to meet those commitments. But I'm telling you, if I didn't, I'd be there right now, ready to resist whatever those federal fuckers are doing to stop people from rescuing. So we'll get into that in a second. So here we go. Government's response to emergencies. Now, I went on TikTok about 5 days ago. This stuff was just beginning. And I just made an abstract point. The government sucks at responding to emergencies. And I pointed out, when I first got into the Liberty Movement, 1979, well, we're really kicking ass, aren't we? We have less liberty now than we did then, a lot less. Oh my God, don't get me started on that. So there was a guy named F.A. Harper, called him Baldy Harper. I never met him. He was one of these super early founders of the modern resurgence of the libertarian movement. He actually was a mentor of Rothbard. He was older than Rothbard. So very active in the 50s. I think he founded or co-founded the Institute for Humane Studies, one of the first libertarian think tanks. It still exists. He had a great quote. I couldn't find it online, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to paraphrase him. He said, you know, people say liberty's fine, but during an emergency, the government is allowed to restrict our liberty. And Harper said, no. That's completely wrong-headed. Liberty is not a weakness. Liberty is a strength. And it's in emergencies that we need liberty the most. And it's like, I've always remembered that, tried to give him credit whenever I can. So I've been following the government response to emergencies very closely over the years. And since Buffalo has had several major storms, one of them, most of them snow, but one of them was actually an ice storm called the October Surprise. I have like Buffalo has been a laboratory for me to go out and test Harper's theory and to gather journalistic data on how government responds to emergencies. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to go through some of these things, some of the theory, and then I'll end up... oh, thanks.
Sometimes they're going to have to realize that,
I never press this button here because I don't trust the drivers to stop.
you know,
They license these people, but I didn't license these drivers because a lot of the people on the road are homicidal maniacs. And I'm writing a book about how to drive, by the way, so just so you know, I'm somewhat obsessed with that issue. With one fatality, 2 serious injuries in the family in auto accidents. So terrible. So, I don't know which to do first, the theory or the practice. So, blizzard of 77, very, very bad storm. It took a few days to dig out. I don't have any particular gripes about the response, and it was a long time ago. I will just say this, that I just got my license. I was a late bloomer, and I heard on the TV radio, there's a driving ban in Buffalo. And I said, fuck that. You're not going to tell me I can't drive. I drove with impunity. First time I ever had a license. Learned how to drive during the blizzard of 77. So, other storms, other events. Let's talk about 2 years ago, huge, ridiculous snowfall and blizzard. I mean, very bad. People died out there because of the lack of response. I got my gear on and I walked over to Starin. Just horrible conditions. Just to get out of the house and see what was happening. So at Starin and St. Lawrence, which is right near my house, there was a car obviously stuck. The woman had just been working at Tops, which is one of the last places allowed to be open, and her boyfriend was driving her home. They were stuck. I actually filmed that on Facebook, and I helped push them out, and they went on their way. They got down to Amherst Street. Now, if I hadn't, there was nobody on the street. First of all, there was nobody on the street except me and them. And by that I mean no government officials whatsoever. Nothing. No first responders. Jim was the first responder. Now, would they have gotten away, would they have gotten unstuck without me coming by? Yeah, probably. But you know, about a mile from my house, a guy was stuck in his car. And I believe, I'm recalling it now. I think the guy called WBEN for help, and nobody, I'm not blaming WBEN. I might have the story mixed up, but they were definitely reporting on it and asking for, they asked the police to come. This guy freaking died. I'm only not swearing because I'm walking by some people. This guy died. Now, if I had known 1 mile from my house, maybe a mile and a half, I don't care, that there was a guy in a car who was freezing to death, I would have literally walked over there myself and helped the guy with my gear, my Arctic gear for walking. This notion that the government's going to be there for you in an emergency is total bullshit. And I know it from my own personal experience. Point 2, October surprise storm. I took my daughter, she was young at the time, out. I think it was a Saturday after the storm. I can't remember if the storm was on a Thursday. I have so much to talk about, this might take 2. It might have been 2 days after the storm, maybe it was the day after the storm. This big storm, there were trees blocking all over Erie County, and particularly in Buffalo, because it's somewhat more congested, the streets are smaller. There was nothing. Nobody was doing a fucking thing. Do you know why? In addition to all the other reasons why government's incompetent, which I'll get into in a second. God, my blood is up on this. I'm so pissed off by what's going on in Appalachia. One of the greatest sections of this country. You know, without Appalachia, there's no fucking America. I'm a Catholic ethnic. I'm not a WASP Scotch-Irish. Well, I'm Irish, I'm not Scotch-Irish. Those ethnically aren't necessarily my people. But without Appalachia, there's no fucking United States. I'm going to walk that Appalachian Trail within the next 12 months. I guarantee, not the whole thing, but I'll walk some of it. So, nobody did a damn thing. You know why? Because they have an incentive to make sure Buffalo looks like shit when FEMA comes. Here's another thing. So Schumer came to town, and the Buffalo Democratic machine had a little demonstration. They brought some people out. They cleaned up one little street right around where Brian Higgins lived or used to live. And I went over there after that, and the day after, it was like nothing. It was just a phony press event. These people suck at responding to emergencies. FEMA actually delays the response because everybody's waiting around to get FEMA money, and FEMA takes a brutally long time to do anything. See if I have any other quick stories. A few years ago, there was that. Remember that storm? And I get the years mixed up. There was like 6 feet of snow in Buffalo. Like you know, people say, "Oh, 6 feet of snow." No, there was literally like 5-6 feet of snow. Remember that storm 6-7 years ago? So I had a relative stuck on the thruway for overnight. People are peeing in bottles. Nobody's doing a goddamn thing. I had my kids. I put my kids in a diner. They were older at the time. I said, "I'll be back in an hour. Going to go get X person." I walked up, I got to the person, we secured the car, and we walked off the thruway. Nobody, goddamn government is not going to come to your rescue during a fucking emergency. They suck, and I'm going to explain why. I'm just telling war stories. I went to a press conference after the October surprise storm. Mayor Brown, who's now with OTB apparently, landed on his feet. I like the guy personally, but, you know, let's face it. So I go there and I said, "You know, Mayor, I've been all throughout the city. First of all, whoa, am I a member of the press? Well, I don't know. I'm probably the most published author in Buffalo since Mark Twain left. Yeah, I think I'm a fucking journalist. I think we can call me a journalist. I actually literally am a journalist, in far as factually reporting on things." I said, like, I just been through all the city. Why isn't the city doing anything to clean up? So the press secretary, who later got caught fleeing the police on some motorcycle, hiding in the bushes. This guy's like, you know, at the time, I'm 6'2", 195, easy. Pretty fit, ex-athlete. Like Dwayne Whitmer, I'm an ex-athlete. This guy's like 5'10", 150. He's getting in my face like you ever see you're bumping into a guy in a bar, he looks over and he's ready to kill you. You say, "Oh boy, cocaine has done its wonder." This guy's getting in my face. I mean, I would have decked the guy in about 3 seconds. I literally almost got in a fist fight because I asked the mayor a question about why the city can't fucking clean up. So, final war story, and we'll get on to some theory. My street, Newport, clogged up. Now, I'm the second house in the street. We were young and healthy. We can walk to Kenmore Avenue, no problem. We got some elderly people on the street. Our street, you couldn't get through our street. I called up Russ Thompson. Russ brought over a goddamn buzzsaw, and we literally cleaned the street. Russ and I started, didn't ask for help. Neighbors came pouring out. That's what people do. That's what human beings do. And we cleared that street. So if one of the senior citizens had a heart attack or needed to get to an ambulance, they would have been able to get to an ambulance. So, look, I wrote an article years ago. It's the same principle. Government's response to 9/11. It's on LouRockwell.com. You can read it. I talked about what the government did before 9/11. I talked about what the government did during 9/11. I talked about what the government did after 9/11. Government sucks at emergencies, just like government sucks at everything. The people on TikTok were debating me. "Well, you know, without the government." The government just serves a therapeutic. This proves my theory, my psychology of politics. The government is basically a prayer. Government is just this myth that allows people to feel better about their lives, but it actually doesn't deliver. And there's theoretical reasons, I'll go into those, and there's practical reasons. I've already talked about, in history shows that government is terrible. So what they're doing, what are they doing in Appalachia? This is from what I've heard. They're blocking the rescuers from coming in. They're stopping people from coming in. Now, there's allegations they're confiscating supplies. I don't know if that's true. That doesn't sound logical to me, but I wouldn't put anything past the government. That fool who runs transportation is telling people they can't use drones. Okay, so we can't spot people. By the way, as I said on Twitter, there's a right to bear drones. I mean, folks, there's a right to bear drones. Drones are the new muskets. Drones are the new muskets. Let's get real. Look at the Ukraine war. There's a right to bear drones. A drone is now an essential piece of equipment to preserve your liberty and health in the United States. And the government's telling you can't use it. The helicopter guy went in, they told him he couldn't go back to pick up the husband of the wife. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. And I'm not in favor of civil disobedience, but if I was down there bringing water and food to starving people and they said, you're going to be arrested, make my fucking day. Yeah, I'm going to be arrested. But let's say 50,000 people show up. They're going to arrest 50,000 people? Then no. No, they're fucking not. I'm so angry about this, I'm beside myself. So after explaining why the government, I've written so many articles, don't even talk to me about price gouging. It's fucking bullshit. There's no such thing as price gouging. It's called the law of supply and demand. And it works. It works during emergencies too. I can explain why. I'm not going to bother because I've already talked about that. So, why is government incompetent at responding to emergencies? So, this is what I wrote. I'm going to read the damn thing because I've talked about my anecdotal evidence enough, my journalistic ventures, my actual observation of watching government in emergency after emergency fail miserably. I forgot the one thing. So that heavy snowstorm that I talked about, not the blizzardy one, the one about 5 years ago. So, another guy, this is not a different story than what I'm talking about. And you know, the local media, of course, American journalism's dead. Local media missed the story, as they always do. Unless they're quoting me, like, well, take that back. So, a guy's in a car, calls for help. AAA sends a tow truck. The tow truck is turned away by the police because there's a driving ban, the guy dies. So what does government do during emergencies? They respond incredibly slowly and inefficiently and expensively, and they also, but the first thing they do before they respond to anything is they set up roadblocks and they tell people, you have to stay out of this area. That cuts off spontaneous individual effort, which is really the basis for a free society. Spontaneous effort, like Elon Musk saying, you know, Starlink is free. I tweeted at Elon Musk when he said that. I said, you know, you probably violated some federal law. I mean, you know, he probably actually did. I could probably find one. So I'm going to read this into the record, and then I'm probably going to shut up because I've said enough. People need to get your asses down there. Bring the supplies. Just bring yourself for cleanup. Bring your equipment. And as I would do if I could, I would risk being arrested. I would gladly sit. I fucking hate jails as a criminal defense lawyer. I would gladly sit in jail all night for the offense of trying to help people who need the help in Appalachia. So, this is what I wrote. Why is government incompetent? Its vice is identical to its alleged virtue, power, the very power we are told government must have to fulfill its mission, shields its principles from real-world feedback about their performance. Government has the power to pay its employees continual raises regardless of performance. Predictably, those employees soon get fat, dumb, and happy. Though there are some competent people in government, the overwhelming motivation of people who seek government jobs is job security. The near certainty of receiving a paycheck week after week, year after year, with virtually no concern for performance and very little chance of losing their jobs. While there are certainly good reasons for people to be concerned about job security, what kinds of people will put that one consideration above all others in pursuing a career? Perhaps those who lack the confidence in their own ability to function in a competitive environment where one's performance is constantly scrutinized and judged by employers, business associates, customers, and clients. Thus, our 9/11 response team, can't account for the wind, was staffed mainly by people who consciously and deliberately seek out employment scenarios where their performance is unlikely to be closely scrutinized in any meaningful way. And since no one was ever fired and no one ever resigned over 9/11, they were right. Government has the power to put any competitors out of business, which they're doing now with the private sector rescue teams. And thus, like any monopolist, it gets lazy and complacent. It has the power to immunize itself against the accountability for its errors and omissions. It therefore, over time, adopts a mindset of mindless irresponsibility, best exemplified by its casual attitude towards the murder of non-combatants. By its very nature, the state cannot be bound by the moral strictures binding on the rest of us. Thus, over time, its agents adopt a mindset of operational nihilism, leading to such holocausts as the bombings of Dresden, Tokyo, Hiroshima, and Nagasaki, still fiercely defended to this day. Not by me, though. It's mass murder. On a more technical level, there's Lew Rockwell's brilliant yet Nobel Prize losing insight, extending Mises's explanation for the failure of state socialism, that governments in mixed economies likewise cannot rationally plan in the absence of market feedback. Surely, if those who worked in the World Trade Center had manifested their security concerns in a market, they would have paid for defense against an air assault and foregone protection of Japan, Korea, and Germany, and the jailing of marijuana merchants. Unrestrained by the need to make a profit, pleased by pleasing customers, military planners squander billions of dollars, guided mainly by self-interest, whim, cronyism, graft, and special interest group dynamics. Got to turn the page here. I normally don't do notes on the Walking Podcast, but this is an exception. The exception that proves the rule, Francis Bacon. Left out of the equation, any defense of our most important city on 9/11. I couldn't believe it at the time. It's like, where is the Air Force? Where's the Air Force? AWOL. And we used to laugh about the Russians waiting in line to buy toilet paper. If we perform an institutional analysis, we reach the same conclusion. How did the federal government get its power? By winning a war against the Confederacy, by sacrificing its own soldiers' lives to wear down a smaller but better army. Mohammed Atta did not secede from the Union on 9/11, so Grant's gambit would not have been effective. How does the government maintain its power? By raising revenue, by threatening to imprison its recalcitrant citizens. Mr. Atta was not evading taxes. Sorry. By maintaining a sufficient force to ward off its displacement by a foreign state or domestic revolutionary movement. Sorry. The soon-to-be ashen Mr. Atta, contrary to neocon propaganda, was not trying to take over the U.S. government on 9/11. Persuading its population, largely dumbed down by government schooling, that it is great, good, and indispensable. Sorry. You didn't convince Mr. Atta. What else is the federal government good at? Mass destruction of cities and populations, given some advance notice. Sorry, Mr. Atta kept his counsel. Thus, the institutional skills of government, each designed to facilitate its self-preservation, were all quite useless to us on 9/11 and now in North Carolina. Of course, the propaganda machine kicked in immediately to contain the damage to the state's reputation. All it took was a former rogue prosecutor turned washed-up politician and burlesque adulterer to stand in front of the cameras and mouth platitudes for a few days to convince the dimwits that all was well. It's time to realize that the federal government, now in charge of North Carolina, is led by a bunch of incompetent, brainless morons who are a threat to our personal and national security. Thanks, Abe, for creating this useless monster. Though it is not clear what can be done about it, at the very least, you can go to sleep tonight knowing the truth. After all, tomorrow is another day. Say a prayer and have thoughts. Yeah, you can do that. For the people in Appalachia and to those who may get arrested non-violently, coming to their aid. Thank you.